First and foremost, right, you probably noticed the name, DB2 Warehouse, right? That's our new name. Originally dashDB local. We are now part of the DB2, the broader DB2 family, and that's where the DB2 Warehouse is. So again, all the feature function that we have delivered and will be delivering will stay as we have been kind of tracking that, but yeah, it's a different name. So just want you guys to make sure you get accustomed to it. One of the key takeaway that we have been hearing from our clients and feedback that we have been receiving from our business partners and users. And we take that with a lot of pride, make sure we deliver on some of the key challenges and simplification, right? So as you can see here, we have with an MPP scale deployment, right? And even if when you're scaling out with multiple nodes, we have reduced the number of commands that you really have to run. So initially you would run a Docker run and then Docker exec to start the database, right? The dashDB database. Instead, now you can just do a Docker run command, which will automatically under the covers do the start of the database for you guys. So that's in one less step, one less command for you to keep track and run as you kind of do updates and scaling up. The other feature that we have, again, listen to our users to make sure, as we enhance work with our HA capabilities, right? And one of the observations that you probably might have seen if you're using an MPP deployment is if an head node fails, right? Normally, you have some kind of prep work going on that node. And the way you run scripting and some of the things, right? So we have made a provision where if the head node is available again, we will automatically, make that as the current head node. So that kind of simplifies, some of the prep work that you might have done to run off the head node, just to make sure that there's no other, distractions with having to use some other nodes in the cluster. From a security standpoint, we have expanded the number of other function privileges that you could leverage, right, with the schema level privileges. As you can see here on the screen, I'm not going to read to each and every one, but some of the folks who might be familiar with the Db2, that's where with some of the functions that you can access at the schema level, right? Execute and insert load schema admin and so forth, right? So those are some of your key functions that you can expand and manage your access privileges. From monitor and licensing detail, right? We keep adding the functionality to make sure you get to see the core details in terms of what level of licensing you're using, right? So we have added this another function which will give you the CPU cores as part of your number of physical CPUs, right? So that kind of gives you another level of detail that you can monitor and leverage as you cross-check some of that. The most exciting stuff, right? Last month we had come up with an experimental container for some key functionality, such as parallel insert, external tables, reduce logging, and as of this month, you should be more confident to go and use that in production if you need to, taking those baby steps, right, to make sure that we build and build a more simplified user experience, right? So today, James is going to walk you through some of this in terms of how we can really set it up, how we can run and leverage external tables. So this is going to be really a good demo that you can learn and start putting that to use. So go ahead, start try to put that in your production environment if you need to, but also share any feedback that you might have with that. One of the other things, and that you probably might have noticed here is we have expanded the number of nodes, right, that you can scale out to. So today, based on the amount of the memory you allocate on a cluster, right, that memory is based on that amount of memory. We will create that number of partitions in that given cluster to allow you to scale out. So as you can see here, the threshold of 7.64 terabytes. If you have more memory on that cluster, we would allocate up to 60 nodes. We could allow up to 60 nodes and partitions in that cluster. Right. So James can touch upon that a little bit more if you have more, if you want to go in detail there. But this was kind of give you a pretty broad, the work that we have been doing, and kind of walk you through some of that exciting stuff, right? So with that, I'll pass this on to James, where he'll kind of walk you through some of that in more detail. All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Mitesh. If we can go ahead and stay with that, I can just comment a little bit. So as Mitesh was talking about on the very last line, this new feature of 24 versus 60 nodes, it's not so much nodes, it's parallel data slices of what we automatically select for you, the amount of or number of parallel engines. This is what is automatically selected. It does also align in terms of max number of nodes, as you need to have at least one parallel engine or data slice per node or server, but it's really about the number of parallel data slices, right? You could certainly have far fewer number of nodes and get 60 parallel data slices. It's also not the maximum. This is really just what's automatically selected if you just give us an environment. You certainly do have an ability to even go beyond and choose your own number of data slices if you wish. Right. Let me comment a little bit about some of the other capabilities, like the simplified deployment. I just want to kind of talk a little bit about why we did this. So in the past, you would actually start up your actual Docker container on each of the nodes, and then you'd start the service, right? It was kind of a manual step that a human would have to do to be able to kind of coordinate and synchronize the cluster deploy. Now it's all automatic. So if you just start the Docker container on each of your nodes, you just actually run the container on each of your nodes. What we do is we actually probe in the background, and we'll go ahead and start all the services for you automatically. And the reason why this is really valuable, the reason why this is really cool is that now it works a lot better with various container services that are out there. So you don't have to manually go into and do that extra service start step, right? So like if you want to deploy this on various container services, whether it's like Kubernetes, right? Or whether it's like, various container services that are out there, Amazon's container services or whatnot, you'd be able to just, fire off the Docker run container automatically will, probe and sync in the background and start up the entire cluster for you, right? The schema level privileges also really valuable, really important. In the past, you could create roles and assign privileges per role and assign that to users. So it really was kind of a user-oriented type of access control. A lot of our customers were saying that they would like to be able to grant privileges based upon schema of the data. Right, so here is a schema that has all this various tables and data, whatever, and anyone who has access to that schema should in bulk be granted these type of privileges. So we call it the schema level privileges, a different way to be able to organize and to allow privileges in a different grouping method of schema as opposed to per user or role. Okay, so with that said, let me go ahead and flip over to my share screen. What I want to show you today, really, really exciting, really cool group features that we have in 1.11, parallel inserts, external tables, reduced logging, automatic dictionary compression, a lot of these capabilities coming together to be able to give you this really cool capability that I'd like to demonstrate for you today. Go ahead.
James, just one quick thing, before we kind of get there, I just want to give a quick peek into what's coming in our next month before we jump onto the demo. And as you can see on the slide here, right, we are building integration RDMS tab into our container. So that's coming. We have users who have been waiting for this patiently, and we are closely working on that. One other key feature function is expanding our support on the Linux platform. So that will be in the late Q3, Q4, early Q4. Just wanted to kind of give you a heads up that these are some of the high-level features. There's a lot more under the covers that you will see, in terms of function features that we'll talk on a monthly basis. So with that, I'll stop my sharing, James. I'll pass it on to you, and you can begin to show your demo there. Thank you.
Okay. Now, while I'm switching over to my screen share, my desktop, I do want to spend a little bit of time to talk about the new name. Mitesh had mentioned Db2 Warehouse, capital D, lowercase b2. So the Db2 designation has changed a little bit with lowercase b, and we have changed our branding and our name with to Db2 Warehouse. So I do want to make sure that we get a chance to talk a little bit about that. There are lots of products. You probably heard me speak about our common analytics engine, right, and how we are certainly fully SQL compatible with the Db2 engine. A lot of the Db2 engines and capabilities are also available, as well as Netezza capabilities. So I did want to spend at least a moment just to clarify from moving forward. If you see the name D lowercase b2 warehouse, that is in reference to like dash local. Db2 warehouse in the cloud would be like our cloud service. You'll see a lot of our products converging on this new naming. Okay, so that in place, so I spoke a little bit about a lot of really cool new features, and it really is, again, bringing together all these new capabilities, right? What you'll see is you'll see much faster inserts through parallel inserts and vectored inserts. You'll be able to see much faster data movement as well, reduced logging, which also will help make that much faster. And once we kind of get to that type of capabilities, it allows us to use external tables, something that our Netezza or PDA users might be very familiar with. So I have my screen here, and this is logged into a Db2 warehouse or dash local environment. So if you just do Docker PS, you'll see that we do have our container up and running. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter inside this core container. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to become the instance user. The experience that I want to show you today is really kind of how external tables is set up out of the box. The way external tables work is there is a database tunable parameter. One moment. There we go. So out of the box, the way that we ship Db2 Warehouse today, there is a tunable that determines the location of your external table. This is primarily for security purposes. And out of the box, what it'll do is it'll set it to the path of your instance home. And what that means is that external tables, or particularly the files that hold your data that can become an external table, must reside only in this path. This is primarily for security type purposes, but you can change this. You can change it to whatever path you wish, or to like a head parent path that also includes like subdirectories underneath it. Again, for measure of control for security, but for default, this is where it is. I wanted to show you this this tunable variable where you can change that. But with that in mind, so I have a few scripts here ready that I just kind of wanted to show you. So I have a data file here. We call it star 2000 CSV. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you. I created these into little scripts just to make it easy, so I don't have to type it all over again. Get that out of the way. So in this first script here, all it's going to do is it's going to create the actual external table. Give it a name. It's going to say that the table is going to have the same attributes as a table that already exists. So in terms of like column definition, the table definition, right? And then all you have to do is point to the actual file name. So what I'll do, by the way, I'm going to be using the Db2 command line editor, but probably as you've heard me speak about this in last month's session, we designed Db2 Warehouse to be to give you a choice in terms of the working environment you wish. You know, those of you who are familiar with PDA or Netezza, you can certainly use dbSQL to enter these commands. You know, and you know, if you're familiar with that environment, if you are more familiar with like Oracle, then you can certainly use CLP+, which also gives you an environment or command line that's more similar with Oracle. In this case, I'm just going to be using Db2. So if you use Db2's command line editor, just -tvf, for those of you probably familiar, is how you would execute a script, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just execute this create external table script. And you'll see that it creates successfully. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to execute a different script here that shows you row counts, right? It's called selectCount.sql. And what it'll do is it'll show you the actual row counts of the external table that we have now created. So the external table points to a file, and inside that file, you'll see that there's about 2 million rows. The actual base table has 0 rows. For example, if we want to do a line count on the actual data file, you'll see that the line count matches the number of rows that are shown in the external table, which is what we would expect, right? So now at this point, this external table is already available. You can use SQL to query it. You can select from it. You can do whatever you wish. The most common scenario that we would do with the external table is that people would probably want to try and load with it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this insert script here. This insert script, all it's going to do is it's going to insert into our base table from the external table. A very common classical way if you would want to actually load tables, right? So if I just execute that script, you'll go ahead and kick off the inserts. Again, you'll find that the inserts are significantly faster now with a lot of these new features, the vectored inserts, the parallel inserts. So this is now a very, very good way to be able to do your ingests or inserts of data. Today in the lab, we find in a moderately, equipped system, you should be able to get upwards of 5 terabytes per hour ingest rate, if not faster, if you have faster hardware, right? So a very good, easy way to be able to now ingest data. You can now do it through SQL by just basically creating an external table against your file, or you can actually just directly access that file. So now that the insert is completed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and run that select count again. And what you'll see now is that this is our external table, and this was the base table that already existed. As you can see, since I inserted all the rows into it, then now the row counts match, right? So again, great way to be able to do ingest, great way to be able to get immediate access to data files that come in flat files, external tables capability, been available in Netezza, something that our Netezza customers like. We now make it available for you in Db2 Warehouse. So that's what I wanted to show you today. You can certainly also use the ability to also unload if you wish. All the various external table capabilities are now there, as well as just use it for any other SQL type capabilities.